Make sure you follow me on social media to get updates and ask me questions. Enjoy the video.
Hello and welcome to this brand new course in Laravel 5.4 for advanced users. For this course, Laravel 5.3 for beginners is required. So in order to understand this course, you need to know Laravel, at least the basics. If you haven't watched the Laravel 5.3 for beginners course, then you have a link for it below. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. As I said in my Facebook and Twitter accounts, for this course we are going to use Docker for our development. Now, is Docker required? No. Can you skip this? Yes. So you don't have to use Docker for your development. If you want to use XAMPP or mmap for Mac or WAMP for Windows or even Homestead, you can go on and do it. Now, Docker is very similar to Homestead and they pretty much do the same thing. However, I just got into Docker and I can say that I love it. I find Docker to be easier to work with, more flexible and a bit faster than Homestead, and you will see why in a minute. Now, the reason why I'm using Docker this time is because 1. Tools such as XAMPP are not a good idea, and 2. Because a lot of you work on different operating systems and maybe you have modified your configurations on your machine, and as a result something might work on my machine, but because you have probably made some modifications in your MySQL file, for example, or something similar to that, then in your machine might not work. So to avoid these problems, it works on my machine but not on yours, we can use Docker and we will all have the same settings and configurations. Of course, as long as you do not change them on your own later. For now, I have already Docker installed in my machine, but I want to take this step by step with you. So what I'm going to do is to uninstall and start from scratch. So if you later want to uninstall Docker, then these are the steps. Go to Preferences, then Reset, Uninstall. Alright, I don't have Docker anymore in my machine, so I can go to Finder, I can go to Applications and bring this inside the recycle bin, inside the trash. Now for Windows users to uninstall Docker, you can just go to your programs and uninstall it like you do for every other program. Okay, so now let me introduce you to a couple of tools that we are going to use during this course. So first of all, you need to install Git. I'm not going to uninstall and reinstall Git again in my machine, but let me tell you what you need to install Git. So just search on Google, install Git, and you will have to go to this website. Then you have to go to Downloads, and you can download Git for Mac, for Windows, for Linux, or for Solaris. So just download it and install it. So this is one. We also need SQL Pro. So go to the official website for SQL Pro, and you have to download it. Just click download, the download will begin, and you are ready to go. So I will cancel this because I have already this installed. Okay. And the last piece is Docker. So just search for Docker, go to the official website, and make sure you download the version for the Community Edition, because this one is free. The other ones you have to pay, if I'm not mistaken. So just go to Get Docker from Docker Store. Once you are in the Docker Store, you can download the Community Edition for Mac or the Community Edition for Windows, and you have to install it, of course. I have already mine downloaded, so I can go to Downloads, double click this, and this is where the installation starts. Because I am on Mac, I will just drag this to the applications. If you are on Windows, you just have to follow the usual next. So after you do that, you go to the applications and you double click this, and Docker should start right now. Click open, next, okay, just enter your password and you are ready to go. As you can see, Docker is starting. And once everything is done, then you can see that Docker is running. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is to open the terminal and create a new Laravel project inside desktop. So I will cd inside the desktop and I will create a new Laravel project. You already know the command, create project, composer, create -project, Laravel, And I will call this Advanced Laravel 54 to indicate the 5.4 version, which is the latest version of Laravel right now. So if in the future a new version comes out, then what I'm going to do is to have on the Devlob website, which you can see the URL right now on your screen, a list with the changes and possible fixes if something doesn't work with the newest Laravel version. So at the moment the website is not ready yet, the new design. I still have the old design live. For now, simply register, and when I put the new design live with all the new tools and features, I will let you know, because I think that you will love it a lot. So once the installation is done, I will open the new project using PHP Storm. So I will open my PHP Storm. I will go to Open, Browse to Desktop, and open the project. So from now on I will use PHP Storm because I feel more comfortable when I use PHP Storm and not Sublime Text. Okay, so I will close the console because I don't need it anymore personally, because PHP Storm has already a terminal for me. So if you can see here, I'm already inside the Advanced Laravel 54, which is the name of the Laravel project. Okay, so time to install Laradock, because we just installed Docker, however we also need Laradock. So Laradock is a Laravel development environment, which means that you need to forget about manually downloading and installing tools such as MySQL, PHP, Redis, Composer, etc., etc. We are going to learn how to do all that using Laradock. So first of all, we need Laradock. So I will go to the Laradock documentation, and what I'm going to do is to clone Laradock, and I will go back to PHP Storm and paste it here. Make sure you're inside Advanced Laravel 54. So once this is done, you can see that we have a new folder here now, Laradock. So we still have to download a couple of more megabytes. Alright, once this is done, you should have everything ready. So this is Laradock, and these are a couple of folders inside Laradock that just got installed. Okay, so now let me tell you something. If you decide to use Laradock for your development, then you need to move inside the Laradock folder. If for any reason, for example, you feel like Docker is a waste of time, or you have problems in the future and you do not want to use Laradock, you want to go back to your old development, then you can forget about Docker and Laradock and continue with your old development tools. So what I want to say is that you do not need to use Laradock for this course. It will be better if you do, but it is not necessary. However, as I said, with Laradock you get tools such as MySQL, PHP, Composer, Redis, and more than that with just one command. You do not have to download and install them manually. Docker will do that for you. With that out of the way, I want to use Laradock, so I will move inside the Laradock folder. cd Laradock. Now this is where the magic begins. For this new brand Laravel course, I want to use Nginx and MySQL for now. So Docker uses containers. So what we need to do is to specify the containers we want to use. So first we want to notify Docker that we want to start some containers. So the command is docker -compose up-d. After this command, you simply specify the containers you need. So we are going to use Nginx and MySQL. And this is just for now. So you press enter and you are ready to go. Everything will be installed, so you do not have to worry about this. Even PHP will be installed for you. Easy as that. You simply specify the containers you want to use for this project, and if the containers are not there, like in my case because I uninstalled Docker earlier, then it will download the containers, and the next time you bring them up, you do not have to download them again. So this download process will take some time. It needs to download some libraries, but don't worry about this. Grab a cup of coffee. In my case, I will get just some water just because I don't like coffee, and see you once this is done. In case you get errors during the installation, then make sure you have enough memory, and if that doesn't help, then reset to factory default and run the command that is on your screen right now. So to reset to the default factory settings, go to Preferences, Reset, and click this button. And after that, just run the command that you see on your screen right now. Once everything is installed, then you can rerun the command to see yourself that all the containers will run immediately. You do not have to re-download them. So let me clear the console, run this again, and as you can see, everything started up without re-downloading them again. Okay, so one of the usual problems when running the containers is that the ports might be allocated. Skype, for example, might be using port 80. Another thing that you need to know is that in case you are running XAMPP or WAMP, for example, you might again have a crash on ports. So you can easily close XAMPP or any other similar tool you are using, and in general, close any process that uses the required ports. Docker will tell you exactly which ports are allocated, and you need to free them in order to continue. So I don't really know what applications you have already installed in your machine, and it might be, different applications allocating different ports that Docker requires. So an easy fix to this is to restart your computer and make sure the applications that allocate the required ports do not start by default. Skype, for example, make sure that Skype doesn't start by default. So when it comes to allocated ports, I cannot really help you, as I said, because you have different applications installed, and I don't really know which application uses which port, so I cannot really help you with this. So just make sure you restart the computer at this moment. Now, the other fix, as I said, is to close any process that allocates the required ports. You can normally do this using the terminal or the command line if you are on Windows. If everything goes well, then all your containers should be running fine. You can double check it by running docker-compose ps. So this will list all the containers that are running. If the state is up, like in this case, then you are fine and you can continue with the rest of the video. Now, if you visit localhost on your browser, you should see the Laravel project running. So what I will do is to go on and modify the welcome view to make sure that everything is okay. So open the welcome view and change the text that says Laravel to something else. Hello world. Go back to this, reload, and as you can see, it changes. So it means that this project that we just created and we are using Docker, it runs successfully. However, I don't want to access this project as localhost. I would prefer something like this. Advanced Laravel 54, because we are in 5.4 version, .dev. So this is what I would prefer to have as a URL. So to do this, open your hosts file. Mac users can run, let me actually do this here, sudo nano etc and then hosts. Just type your password and you are fine. So let me make this a bit bigger. On the other hand, Windows users should run Notepad as administrators and open the hosts file inside Windows, System32, drivers, etc, and then hosts. So if you have problems with this, then simply Google it, Windows hosts file, go to the first URL, and you can see the steps right here for Windows 10 and Windows 8, and for the older versions below this. So you open the hosts file, and then you have to include the advanced Laravel 5.4.dev link. So I have already done this, but let me actually delete it and do this again. So I will press Ctrl+X and then Y and then enter. So let me go back to this now. As you can see, this is empty. So it is very easy. Just say 127.0.0.1 and then the URL that you want to use. In my case, I want this to be advanced Laravel 54.dev. This URL, it is a big, so why don't we just say here a Laravel 54, and A will indicate that this is the advanced course. Alright, so I will press Ctrl+X and then Y and then enter. So if I go back to this now, you can see that we still have this inside. Perfect. Windows users can simply save the file as always. Now, you can go back to the browser, and the URL now is a Laravel 5.4, and I have to spell this correctly, so a Laravel 5.4.dev, press enter, and you should have it running without any problem. So this works. Now time to connect to a database. Let me bring this down and go to .env, and you have to change the host to MySQL. Now, in order to be able to run commands such as artisan, composer, and PHP unit, you need to enter the workspace container by using this command. So let me clear this, and I will say docker -compose exec for execute, and then workspace bash. And we get this error because we are not inside the Laradock folder. So let me cd inside Laradock and run this command again. Alright, so now you are inside the workspace container and you have access to commands such as PHP artisan, for example, or composer. And if you run PHP artisan migrate, as you know, this will migrate the tables to the default database. Now the question is, what is the default database? Well, inside the Laradock folder, you have a docker compose file. So if you open that file and you scroll down to the MySQL container, which is right here, you can see that the database is Homestead, the user is Homestead, the password is secret, and the root password is root. So we have to access this Homestead database. So to do that, open SQL Pro, and to access the database, we just have to add the credentials that we have right here. So the name, I will not give a name, the host is 127.0.0.1, the username is Homestead, the password is secret, and the database is again Homestead. And once again, you have all that information right here, for MySQL of course. So if I click connect, we are connected to the database and we have the three tables: migrations, password resets, and users. So if we go back to this and we try to run PHP artisan migrate again, there is nothing to migrate because the tables are already there. So if I select all of them and delete them, delete, go back to this, run this again, we are again remigrating the tables, and of course if you reload, you can see them again here. Now the problem here is that by default we have a database called Homestead, and if you keep it like that, then all your future projects will use the Homestead database. So finally, to close this video, let's change the default database to a custom one. Inside the docker compose file, change the MySQL database for MySQL container to something like advanced Laravel 5.4, or you can just say a Laravel 5.4. Then inside the .env file of your Laravel project, change the database name here as well. And after that, you have to exit. You have to stop the containers by running docker compose stop. Then you have to rebuild the MySQL container because we made a change, which was to change the database name to a Laravel 5.4. So to rebuild, we just have to say docker compose build, and then you specify the container, which is in our case MySQL. You press enter. Once we rebuild the MySQL container, then you have to go back and say docker compose up-d, and again you specify nginx and MySQL, which is again what we are using. So the difference here is that everything is starting, however the MySQL container was recreated. And this is because we made the change earlier. So now, to finally close this video, we have to go back to the workspace container using this command. And if I run PHP artisan migrate, oops, if I spell this correctly though, migrate,
you see that we remigrate the tables, however, not in this database, not in the Homestead database, but in a different one. So if I go to New Connection tab, let me close this one, and we have to give this a name this time, because this one will be the one that we are going to use. So a Laravel 5.4, again the same mistake, 127.0.1. The username is again Homestead, we didn't change this. The password again is secret. And the database now is a Laravel 54, which was what we are using right here, and of course in the .env file. Perfect. So let me add this to the favorites and connect. And as you can see, we have the tables. And of course, if I say again php migrate, this will not work. However, if we delete the tables, go back to this, run this again, are migrated again, and if we reload, you can see the tables right here. Okay, so there you go. We have Laravel installed, running on Docker with a custom database. So from now on, I will use Docker for the upcoming videos. But again, if you find this difficult to use, or you have a lot of problems and you cannot get a solution, then you can go back to your old development. Now it is time to start advanced Laravel videos.